Hey, this is Soldier 7 here, reporting for Right Wing Federation, and this video will be more on the Ukraine-Russia conflict. Now, apparently I did a video about this recently. Didn't really know the right words at the time, probably still don't do now, but nevertheless, I probably did mention I was going to make another video about this or not, but I'm going to. And probably explain a little bit more why, I don't know, I may not have the right words yet to, describe any of this since I've been looking at, all sides of the aisle, left, right, and center, those who are for it, those who are against it, those who are floating in the middle, and so forth. So, yeah. So I figured I'll probably do another one now. Since the Ukraine-Russia conflict, well, depending on who you ask, if you go back all the way to 2014, like the one that we're talking about now, when Putin decided to invade Ukraine, that's been going on for about a month, and just ever since then, like ever since it kicked off, when there was the eastern Ukraine, like Donbass and Crimea, which was already annexed, years ago. But like I said, when the invasion first occurred last month, it just seems like ever since now and then, it's just a lot of stuff has come out. Like I just see like a whole lot of like reports coming out, some of it accurate, some of it not. And then you got like the whole divided crowd, that's left, right, and center. Those who are for supporting Ukraine, those who are against Ukraine, those who want to stay neutral. Then, of course, on the other side, you got those who are being pro-Russia, saying that it's totally justified by Putin to go in and take Ukraine and so forth and whatnot. And people bringing up historical factors and everything, and it's just like, I don't know, it just kind of just, I don't know. I don't know what the right word to say is. It's just, I don't know, kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I just really don't know if I have the right words, to be honest with you, because it just seems like since the whole thing, started, just like it's kind of like just drove people crazy. I mean, there's nonstop talk about it and so forth. And I don't know, there's just like a lot of ridiculousness going on both sides of the aisle to where I'm just kind of like, wow, yeesh, what the fuck, man? I mean, I don't know. It's like if you like say something wrong to this side and say something wrong to the other side, like you could just mean something else, and they'll say, well, you're for that or you're for that, when no. Like, you can like support Ukraine and not be like a hawkish, bloodthirsty monster or whatnot, or whatever the fuck, the other side like to use. But you can say you don't believe in getting involved and not be like a pacifist or something, or whatever it is. It's like, just the attacks going back and forth. Now, as I said before, I'm all for supporting Ukraine, even though I'm kind of more into the neutral area. But I am like all for supporting Ukraine, but I do have, like I said, everybody knows I've said that before, but I also said I don't support militarily. That includes, land, sea, and air. Sorry, I can't do that. Like, I just kind of more for the give them whatever they need, and that's it. Like, but being that said, like, I may get caught. I may be accused of, being like hawkish or warm. Hey, I didn't say send the U.S. Marines into Ukraine to fight the Russians. I just said, I'm all for, supporting Ukraine. I'm all for, like, giving them some sort of assistance, but I'm not for sending, the U.S. military in to fight for Ukraine, because, like I said, that may start a third world war. Now, some people are already saying that we're already at a third world war. Well, I don't know about that, but it's just rhetoric going back and forth that is kind of the reason why I just don't really have the right words. I don't even know how long I'm gonna make this video, and I'm sorry if it comes up dull like the previous one. But like I said, I don't know how many more videos I'm going to do about this, but it's just a lot of things. But back to what I was saying, a lot of things have just been said between when it started and right now. Like, I remember when the whole thing started, you had a lot of these politicians, especially in the United States, and even activists who are for, like, sending Ukraine, like, all the weapons and so forth. When, the Ukrainian government, told citizens to come get some weapons, they had some weapons laid out for them. And that response was, well, especially the politicians that were supporting it, well, mainly like the ones that were for gun control and everything supporting it, and I was kind of like, what the fuck? Okay, so you think it's good for the Ukrainian citizens to be armed, which I agree. I'm not disagreeing. Oh, but when it comes to the United States and the American people, you got a problem with that. What the fuck? And not only that, like, I don't know the gun laws of Ukraine entirely. I mean, obviously there has been, like, paramilitary groups ever since the whole annex thing with Crimea and Eastern Ukraine and, like, the pro-Russian militants fighting and so forth. Yeah, the pro-Russian separatists. Like, you've had, like, groups being formed and so forth, which I'll get to here in a bit. They seem to be holding, like, weapons that are illegal, I would assume, in that country, but they use them anyway. But nevertheless, the point I'm trying to make is that was one of the things that kind of bothered me the most, was, like, all these, like, politicians and celebrities, not all, but the ones that are always talking about how we need to, like, have more gun laws and so forth, and then, like, gun control groups, all of a sudden are in support for Ukrainians to have the right to bear arms, and I believe they should, and I think that maybe if they do, that maybe Putin would not invade, or it would make things a lot more difficult for him now, because like I said, I'm not believing everything that comes out, whether if it's mainstream media or social media or alternative media or whatnot. I don't know. All I'm just going to say is that, well, just like when you hear something, like, this is just me personally, like, when I hear, like, reports about it, like, I may not, 100% buy into it. I may sit on it for a minute, think it over, and maybe look it up later on or so forth. But yeah, that's about it. And like I said, this seems to, like, piss off, like, both sides. Like, even though, yes, I'm kind of, like, neutral, but kind of lean more towards the pro-Ukraine side, there's just certain things I just don't think we should do. But that's kind of like what Black Conservative Perspective, what he said. Like, he claims to be, at least the video I saw him talk about it, he claimed to be neutral, but kind of is more on the Ukraine side. That's kind of where I lie, but not, like, hardline-ish, because yes, I'm aware of Ukraine's, history of corruption and so forth, and that's kind of why I'm a little skeptical and giving some of them some support, and another is because of the Azov Battalion. I'm sorry if that's how they're pronounced wrongly. I'm sorry if that's not how it's pronounced. I'm sorry. But yeah, the Azov Battalion, I think that they're called. They're a they started out as a group. I mean, after the annex of Crimea and the pro-Russian separatists forming paramilitary groups in eastern Ukraine, there was the Azov Battalion, which eventually is now part of the Ukrainian military, and they have rumors to have ties to neo-Nazi groups and so forth. So yeah, that does bring some skepticism. Like, you can be like you can like be for supporting Ukraine and still, be critical of certain things about Ukraine. Like, yeah, the fact that they allow neo-Nazis to be part of their military, at least that's what I hear. And then you have like this history of corruption and so forth. And like I said, at the same time, you can still like be critical of that stuff and still say, hey, I'm for Ukraine. And here's the thing, the part about me saying I'm for Ukraine, I'm all for supporting Ukraine and giving them weapons and so forth, I've even said that, hey, I'm all for that as long as it doesn't go to like the neo-Nazi groups that are within the military. And I don't know, and we should probably ask, not that I think we would get it, but some of the corruption that goes on in Ukraine that does have ties to people in the United States, whether if it's politicians or crony businessmen. Not that I have anything against, people, the right to do business or so forth, but when it comes to, things like monopolization and economic, cronyism and you get the point, corruption and so forth. Yeah, that does make me a little skeptical about who we're going to give it to. And that brings me to the other side, the pro-Russia side, is they use, the Azov Battalion, the neo-Nazi group that's part of the, I guess, Ukraine military right now, which I think they should be expelled, because that's one thing I probably would put on the table if they want large amounts of support, Ukraine. Not that I'm saying we should, but even if they are, they should at least expel them from the military, because I don't think a lot of people in America who are both anti-communist and anti-Nazi would really like that very much, knowing that weapons and money could go to them or whatever. So yeah, I think that's a problem. And so if any support does go to Ukraine, I just hope it's not going to them, and I would say the same thing if it was a communist organization. And that's another thing with the pro-Russia, the pro-Kremlin crowd, those who are saying that Putin was justified in invading Ukraine, like basically people who are tankies and so forth. Well, I mean all sorts of people who just seem to watch Russia Today, aka RT or whatnot, all day, or CCTV, which is pro-Beijing. They just want you to think, see, Putin's fighting Nazis and he's getting rid of corruption in Ukraine. Not like that sort of thing doesn't go on in Russia, because it obviously does. Obviously, he should probably take care of that first, but then again, I don't think that should be used to justify the invasion. Now, being that said, just because, yeah, you got neo-Nazis and so forth that are fighting for Ukraine, does that mean they represent all of Ukraine? No. Does that mean all the Ukrainians support them? No. I mean, I'm sure if you ask many Ukrainians, they'll probably say that the Azov Battalion or the neo-Nazi groups or whatnot or are fighting on the side of Ukraine. I'm sure many Ukrainian people would say that they don't represent Ukraine, because Ukraine is made up of a whole bunch of people, that probably don't fit the neo-Nazi agenda or whatnot. So. And another thing I've heard some people, not all, but some people on the pro-Russia side, the pro-Kremlin, pro-Putin crowd, is how during the Second World War, some Ukrainians, especially in Western Ukraine, collaborated with the Nazis during the Second World War, and I'm just kind of like, what? Because you had people who did that in Russia as well, because you had Russian collaborators during the Second World War also. There was an army made up of Russian collaborators with Nazi Germany called the Russian Liberation Army. So I don't see how that's much of an argument. All that just goes to show is that, yeah, you had Ukrainians who collaborated with the Nazis during the Second World War, which was a long time ago. I mean, yeah, it wasn't 100 years ago, but still a long time ago. But you also had Russians who did it also, so I don't see how that's an argument. I don't see where that argument is going. But yeah, like I said, I'm all for supporting Ukraine, but I'm not for supporting like the neo-Nazis or even communist groups that are maybe supporting Ukraine. Because keep in mind, because I remember seeing a few years ago about some leftist groups who were against Putin and were pro-Ukraine. This was back during 2014 and 2015 and so forth. I don't know if I remember the title of the videos and the links of them, but yeah. But keep in mind, Putin seems to be recruiting very unpleasant people as well, especially during when the whole thing started in 2014 with the annex of Crimea and the fighting in eastern Ukraine. I mean, some of the people who came to the support of the pro-Russian separatists were some very unpleasant people, like the biker group called Night Wolves. Yeah, not the Mortal Kombat character, but yeah, there was a group in Russia made up of bikers called Night Wolves, and you can tell when you go look them up, you can tell that just like the Azov Battalion, they themselves are some pretty very unpleasant people, and they're not the only ones. Then you have Kremlin contractors like the Wagner Group. So I'm just saying, I mean, just like Ukraine, Russia's guilty of, hiring very unpleasant people to fight on the side of Russia and the pro-Russian separatists. Now, being that said, my whole take on it is, well, like I said, I know I keep saying it, I'm all for supporting Ukraine, I just don't believe in sending the military there. And, some people are talking about what's going on with Putin, why is he doing this, and so forth. Well, I don't know. Personally, I would just say, I don't know. Well, personally, my personal opinion of Putin hasn't really changed. I mean, like the whole thing with Putin, like for example, like my whole opinion about him, about Putin and Russia and so forth. I mean, like I've said many times, I don't think Putin is a trustworthy guy. I've always considered him a threat. I never saw him as the biggest threat of all time, and I still don't. I still see the Communist Party of China as the biggest threat, but this goes to show why I always keep saying why I don't think he's a trustworthy guy. Now, I never predicted that this was going to occur, like he was going to invade the rest of Ukraine and so forth. I didn't say it was not going to occur either. If you remember my videos, I said I don't know. I said it could go either way. But my personal opinion of Putin really hasn't changed. I mean, just to give a little more what I think about the guy. And like I said, I mean, this goes back to 2007, a year before, like, the invasion of Georgia. Well, my personal opinion of Vladimir Putin, I think, he's a mobster, he's a mob boss. I think that, yeah, he wants to retake some of the countries that used to be part of Russia, and no, I don't mean the Soviet Union. I do think he does want to bring back the Russian Empire, which was before the Soviet Union, and that was a lot of countries, not just Ukraine. There was Poland, there was Finland, the Baltic countries, and so forth. So yeah, I do think, yeah, he does have that mentality. And I think a part of him, yes, does want to bring back the Russian Empire, which hopefully he does not. Hopefully, well, I mean, Poland obviously is not going to put up with that. It doesn't matter how large of a country Russia is. I don't know if countries like Finland or Poland are going to put up with that. Yeah, this is almost 20 minutes long, so I think. I don't know. But I guess just to add more, I would say that being that said, like, despite my opinion of Putin, I still don't think we should, get militarily involved in Ukraine. Like, even when Biden sent the 82nd Airborne over there, I was opposed to that. I mean, like, I just kind of, like, right now, I just feel like I'm just kind of in the mood to where it's like, okay, Ukraine, you want your weapons and equipment, medical supplies, and food and whatnot here, fine. But at the end of the day, you got to be the ones to do this. Now, granted, there are foreigners over there, but as volunteers, and yeah. But even though at the end of the day, I just kind of wish this would all stop, personally, because it's getting crazy. And I may do another video about this, but not relating to so much about this, but relating to Taiwan, because depending on how Putin performs, does that mean the communists in Beijing are going to feel more emboldened to move on Taiwan? And yeah, and what I say about Ukraine, about supporting them and so forth, I feel the same way about Taiwan. At the end of the day, I mean, like, give them some weapons and so forth. But at the end of the day, they kind of have to, be the ones to do this. And let's see, let's talk. Well, there's a lot. Back to what I was saying earlier. Um, the reason why it's been hard to look at this, to talk about this, because just a whole lot of back and forth and so forth. People bringing up the past and, talking about, the history with Russia and NATO. I'm talking after the Cold War. I mean, you got people saying, well, Russia's been doing this and Russia's been doing that. And then you got the people who's been saying NATO's been doing this and NATO's been doing that. Well, I mean, treaty after treaty, I get it. That's why I'm kind of not like, even though I've claimed to be pro-NATO, I don't support everything NATO does. I even said that NATO needs to do certain things, like kick certain people out, like Turkey. Like, just because Erdogan sent some support to Ukraine doesn't mean he's a trustworthy guy. I still think I still think as long as someone like him is in charge of Turkey, they need to be thrown out. They need to be kicked out of NATO and so forth. And that's kind of the approach I liked with Trump, is that he kind of came at NATO with a different approach. Like, a lot of people say he was anti-NATO, which no, he wasn't. He was just trying to get NATO to pay their fair share. But back to what I was saying, like the whole relation between Russia and NATO, I mean, we can go back and forth and say who's at fault here, but like, here's the thing. And like I said, I'm kind of I'm kind of more for the Ukraine, like I said, even though I'm kind of neutral, but leaning more towards the Ukraine side. Let's just say this. I mean, we can go back and forth who's at fault and who's not at fault, and this may sound more on the pro-Ukraine or pro-NATO side or whatnot, but just bear in mind, bear with me, this is not coming from anything mainstream media has told me or so forth. This is something from history and stuff I've looked at since the year 2007. Now, we can go long before that. Like, for example, like I just said, I do think Putin is an imperialist, and I do think he wants to bring back the Russian Empire to some degree, as much as he can. I mean, he may want to bring back all the countries that were once part of it back into it and form a new Russian Empire, or so forth. And so, yeah, I do think that's, something to consider. And that's the thing. It's like a lot of people like to say, well, NATO do this, NATO do that. Well, here's the thing. When Ukraine was invaded by Putin last month, the thing is a lot of people are talking about, well, NATO said they weren't going to expand after the Cold War and so forth, and some people said we should have gotten rid of NATO back then. Well, okay, maybe so, but here's the thing. Do you think that, the Eastern European countries, not just Ukraine, but like Poland and the Baltic countries, do you think that they weren't gonna want to have some sort of military alliance against Russia? Because keep in mind, I mean, you go back to the Soviet Union, you go back to the Russian Empire, many of these countries have either A, been part of Russia, or B, was part of a puppet state for them during the Cold War, or satellite state as they were called. So, I mean, you kind of got that. So it's kind of like, when people talk about NATO expanding, which, okay, I'm not saying, if it's not necessary, then don't do it, but it's kind of like Poland and the Baltic countries and so forth. I mean, and I guess now Ukraine and even Georgia, I mean, they're probably going to be like, well, we don't trust Russia given our history with them, so even if there's no NATO, we want to have some sort of military, we're willing to join some sort of military alliance that is opposed to them in some way because we don't want to go back under their thumb. We don't want to go back under the rule of Moscow. We want to just be our own people, be our own country, and so forth. So, I mean, you're going to have that. So, I mean, I'm just saying, and probably even some of the Eurasian countries as well. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if opposition in Kazakhstan goes up, because bear in mind, earlier this year, before Ukraine, Putin sent troops to Kazakhstan because there was an anti-government protest that I don't know if it's still going on or not, but then again, it could just, even if it's not, it could just take one more bad day for it to go back up again. But yeah, it was claimed to be on peacekeeping, but what if you think that's true or not, I don't know. In Kazakhstan, I don't know. But yeah, there's that, and here's the thing, depending on where you stand, I will say this, there's a lot of things I could talk about, but this has been kind of going on for quite a long time. I don't want to make it too much longer, but I will say this. If Putin does manage to take all of Ukraine, that doesn't necessarily mean it's over. I mean, obviously we know why. You're still going to have civilians who are not, and probably people within the military who are not going to put down their weapons, and kind of like back when Russia was known as the Soviet Union, they may have, end up having the same problem they did in Afghanistan and the same problem they also had in Chechnya in the 90s. Yeah, sure, there was another Chechen war, but like, yeah, the Chechen war of the 90s, yeah, it didn't go too well for them either. But yeah, so there's always going to be that, so I don't know. I don't know if this, I mean, sorry if this is starting to turn out to be a bit of a rant. This is kind of why I don't do videos this long. I don't know if it's usually a good idea or a bad idea. I don't know. But those who are listening can let me know if I should make videos longer than this. If I'm up to it and I have the time to do it, I suppose I can do a little more than usual. But it's just like, I feel like at this point now it's just becoming a rant. But yeah, that's kind of all I gotta say for right now. This may, like I said, this may piss off one side, this may piss off another, it may piss off both, it may piss off everybody because of where I stand, like, because I say certain things, like, even though, yeah, I'm all for supporting Ukraine and so forth, that doesn't mean I don't hold a little bit of criticism towards Ukraine, mainly towards the government, but at the same time, don't make me think Putin and Russia is any better. They're just as, well, not the country, but Putin's just as bad, if not worse. And I'm not just talking about him, but also the oligarchs that he runs with. The Moscow Mafia, as I sometimes refer to them, as I refer to the Communist Party of China, sometimes as the Beijing Bolsheviks. But yeah, I'll probably get into maybe Taiwan later on. But anyway, that's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say for right now. This is Soldier 7. Thanks for listening.